Okay, so I'm in the process of doing a bit of mining for the new series on, you know, screwing with parasites. And I I was just in a conversation not too long ago, basically talking about uh, a friend of mine and I were talking about like the new Subnautica game, this quote unquote Subnautica 2, which is weird because I thought that Below Zero was Subnautica 2, but whatever. And how it's going to have multiplayer features. And I personally didn't have too strong feelings about it, but I didn't really see multiplayer as a downside. All I saw it as was just another option for gameplay. And, you know, I thought it was kind of cool, because it's honestly what I've been dreaming of for Subnautica ever since the first game came out, especially after I saw someone who made a multiplayer mod for the first Subnautica game, and the entire video was absolute gold. But we were kind of disagreeing on it because, you know, like I understood my friend's point of view, like basically saying that Subnautica's whole deal was kind of isolation and whatnot. And that multiplayer would also probably have a negative impact on the story somehow, which I don't really understand how that would happen. But we were basically going back and forth conversing about how, like, whether or not multiplayer would negatively impact Subnautica. And stupid Flint doesn't, just delete that. Okay, there. Anyways, basically going back and forth on whether or not that multiplayer would be good or bad for Subnautica. And I made a couple points, they made a couple points, and we kept going back and forth like this for a little while. And no, I meant to throw out the leather. And honestly, if you ask me, I don't think that the isolation factor was any way an intentionally core feature of Subnautica. Like, obviously you are isolated, but that, I'm pretty sure, wasn't the focus. From the very beginning of Subnautica, from the beginning of its development, it was an exploration game at its core, along with a survival sandbox game. Not quite as much a sandbox as games like this, like Minecraft, but it was still in its own right a sandbox game. And the sort of eerie isolation feeling was just something that they kind of established as they made the game and kind of played into because they realized, oh, this is good. But at its core, it's always been an exploration game. That's what it was. Right? Subnautica wasn't even in... Subnautica is kind of a horror game, but it was never intended to be. Not from the start. They just kind of realized that it was like this and rolled with it. That's my point of view, at least. But my friend did make some good points of their own, but that's not what I'm trying to focus on here. I'm sorry, I'm just over-explaining a bunch of things. I want to go deeper. So we were going back and forth, and eventually we got to the topic of how, like, talking to people while playing the game. And friends thought it would take away from the experience, and I pointed out that I've, played with friends while playing Subnautica all the time, and it doesn't take away from the experience at all. As a matter of fact, it makes it better for me because, Subnautica, I love the game, but sometimes it's just flat out difficult to play. Not like it's a difficult game. Obviously, it has its own difficulty, but difficult to play is not what I mean when I... Difficulty is not what I mean when I say difficult to play. What I mean is, I find it difficult to keep myself constrained to the game for long periods of time, especially if I'm just sitting there alone. Because, yeah, it is a very isolating game, and even as myself, an introvert, I have a social battery, but somehow Subnautica makes me have an isolation battery. And I don't know how or why that is, but it just does. And I don't know how it managed to do that, but I find myself sitting playing Subnautica, and I'm just sitting there, and my mind is turning to static, and I can feel every neural pathway in my brain just starting... It's like my brain starts to stiffen and crunch. It almost physically hurts to play alone for long periods of time. So yeah, if isolation was what Subnautica was going for, it does that really well. But I made this point that I actually really enjoy playing Subnautica when I have other people to talk to. And that I've done it before, and that it didn't take away from the experience. And what I find out is that my friend gets upset and says that they already mentioned that they as well have played with friends before, or while playing Subnautica, and they get really upset because they think that I kind of glossed over them mentioning it. I didn't realize that they had mentioned it, and they thought it was because I just wasn't listening to them. That's not the case. Alright, this is the point that I've been trying to make this whole time. I am not intentionally ignoring anything that you may say. It's just that I am both a slow texter and a slow reader. So in order to keep up with people who type at a medium to fast level, I have to read and text at the same time and respond to everything in real time, rather than reading it out and then responding. And in the process of trying to keep up, I sometimes end up glossing over details that might be important by accident. Alright? And oh man, haven't seen a slime spawn underground in a while. That's cool. Yeah. I sometimes end up glossing over details and missing things that might be important. And it's all because I'm not good at it, okay? I've tried to make this a point to that friend that I was not intentionally ignoring what they said. I'm just bad at reading. I have like a 3rd grade reading level, I swear, or something like that. Like, I cannot keep up with anyone when it comes to reading, okay? If I had to read a book, if I had to read one chapter of a book in like 3 days, I would die. If it were my life on the line, I would die if I had to read one chapter of a book in 3 days. Because I'm just a slow as frick reader. So I want to make it perfectly clear. If you have a conversation with me over text and I gloss over something that you said, please take no offense to it. I'm not ignoring what you say. I am just a bad reader. I'm also kind of blind because I had to ask them to clarify where they said it because I was looking back at their messages and I could not find where they said it. Like, this is someone I very much look up to. I value their opinion a ton. But it just... I'm freaking blind. And accidentally gloss over a ton of stuff just because I have, like, maybe a 5th or 6th grade reading level. I don't freaking know. So I apologize to anyone who has ever had to have a long-form text conversation with me and has thought that I was, you know, not paying attention to what they were saying. I promise I am. I'm just bad at it.